Uncommon NASA is a New York rapper, and in 2015 he put out one of the best hip hop albums of that year with the album Halfway, also known as Halfway. It was a very conceptual album as Uncommon NASA focused on the halfway point in his life, as someone at 60 years old in his life had just passed away, and he at that point was 30 years old, so he saw that as a halfway point in his life, and he was going through a bit of a crisis on that album. Just the concept alone on that album was remarkable to me, and it made for a pretty interesting listen too, which is why I regarded it as one of the best albums of 2015. Last year he collaborated with Short Fuse on an album which I thought was pretty okay. I didn't really have too much about it that I really liked, but it was decent. But of course he's back again this year with his own solo release, which comes with that a very cool concept, as always, from Uncommon NASA. This time, Written at Night is an album which is very nocturnal. You can tell that obviously all the songs were written during the night, and each track seems to follow like a chronological order as well. Like we have on the first track it's midnight, then later on it's 1am, then it's 2am, then it's 3am. And I suppose that in itself is sort of showing how Uncommon NASA goes through different stages of feelings and emotions during the night. And the instrumentals that back these songs up give that kind of similar vibe to it as well. There are some tracks that are a bit mellow, a bit minimalistic, and do give you that kind of sense of late night, early hours in the morning feel, which is something I've always found from another artist called Ka, who makes very kind of slow down, mellow hip-hop music, and some of the tracks on this album do remind me of him too. But I'm mostly reminded of the rapper Billy Woods on this album, because I think a lot of his flows and his hooks are very similar to the Known Unknowns album, which came out earlier this year by Billy Woods. And also Billy Woods makes a feature right at the end of this album too, on the track Written at Night, which is completely bare bones and it's instrumental. It's pretty cool. It's got a really dark undertone to it, and Billy Woods and Quelle Chris come on this track and sound pretty fantastic with their features as well. It's a very ominous end to the album, and I suppose it wraps up the album really well with the vibe that it was going through for the rest of the record. But there's also some pretty accessible production throughout this record too. There are some fairly catchy choruses, which Uncommon NASA probably hasn't done as much with his previous efforts. Like on Extra Lives with a really good chorus, don't know why I'm always scared. And the instrumental as well, which has this pretty weird sound in the background that goes but actually layered over the beat, it works pretty well, and it's one of the better songs on the album, which is helped with Open Mike Eagle's verse. Open Mike Eagle is amazing anyway, pretty much every time he makes a feature. This track he's talking about racism, and he puts in some pretty good bars on this verse too. And it's not just Open Mike Eagle that gets political on this album. I mean, we have this track Small Change, which might be the most cynical song ever made. I mean, it's basically this lyrical track about how does small change ever amount to anything? Like, does it really do that much of a difference? And the second verse from Juco 1, which where he talks about how even Martin Luther King couldn't make that much of a big change because we still have crazy people rioting the streets every day. When it comes to the world at large, I'm typically quite a cynical person, so this track does kind of reach out to me pretty well, and it actually works quite well too with the verses. However, as I was saying earlier with the production on this album, there are a few moments that don't work quite as well. Black Hole has this really earache of an instrumental. I can't really let it sit well on my ears because it just does my head in, and it really grates on me a little bit. And some of these tracks do feel a little messy in comparison to previous work that he's done before, like the way they're recorded and the way his vocals fit over the instrumentals is a little messy at times, so it does kind of take me away from the tracks a little bit. But like his friend Billy Woods, there's always a lot of interesting lyrical content to come with it. You really have to listen to this album deeply because you will not get most of the lyrics that come through on this album. I still feel like there's a lot of tracks I need to go back to just to kind of understand the lyrical content, because I feel like there's just some kind of paranoia lurking in the background of some of these songs when you listen to some of the lyrics a bit closely, as he does kick off some of these songs with these spoken word passages that really give off this vibe that he's just sat in a room on his own, you know, talking to himself, putting all his thoughts together. And you do have to wonder what kind of state of mind Nasser is currently in, because of some of these tracks do get you wondering what he's thinking about. So just like the album Halfway, I'm really intrigued with what Nasser always has to say. It's just some of the music on this album isn't quite grabbing me the way it has in the past, which is fine because it's still quality music. It's still a great hip hop release in 2017, which is a year that a lot of people are saying isn't really particularly strong for hip hop. But if you did in fact like that Billy Woods and Quelle Chris album, then make sure you give this album a listen too, because it is a stellar hip hop release. I'm going to say it is a B, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like this review. If you've heard this album, let me know what you think in the comments, and have a good day.